Here we are down in the bottom corner of the arena on the grass. So please come and have a chat, come and sit down and listen to what we're doing and showing you about weights and measures and some towing products and bits and pieces. Here with me today I've got Ben also from Hayman Reese and Jim here as well. And these guys are going to help me out with the presentation. Really quickly we're going to go through a few things about weights and measures of your car and caravan. Understand what those terminologies are that probably confuse or scare or bother us the most. And then we'll have a bit of a chat also about weight distribution hitches and how important they are to balance your car back to the way it should be when before the caravan and car were actually connected up to each other. So really quickly, looking at the car. Here today we have a Toyota Land Cruiser 300 series, and the weights and measures I write on the side window here are the actual weights that the maximum weights that the car are allowed to have when they're hooked up with the caravan behind it. Some of the key numbers we're worried about are the GVM, the towing capacity, and the GCM. So when I look at the car side of things, the GVM stands for gross vehicle mass. So the gross vehicle mass means that's the maximum weight your car can ever weigh with everything fitted into it and carried on into it as well. So that's all your passengers, it's your fuel, it's your luggage, it's all of your accessories, your bull bars, your winches, all that sort of stuff. But it also needs to include your tow ball weight from your caravan when the car and the caravan are connected. And in the case of this 300 series Land Cruiser, I can tell you the GCM is 3,280 kilos. So when you have all of your accessories, everything all fitted to this particular car, and then the passengers jump inside, you can't exceed that 3,280 kilos. If you do, you are illegal, so there is then potential issues with the transport authorities and also potentially your insurance companies. The GVM can be found in the owner's manual of your car. The other important number we do have there is the towing capacity. So the towing capacity on this 300 series Land Cruiser is 3,500 kilos. What that means is whatever you tow behind you, the overall weight of your caravan can't exceed 3,500 kilos. That's the actual weight, not just the ATM or the theoretical numbers, but the actual weight can't exceed 3,500 kilos. And that's pretty common for most of your Land Cruisers, Patrols, your dual cab utes, that sort of stuff, those sorts of vehicles. They're all around that 3,500 kilos. There's also an important number that's the towing capacity though, and that is the tow ball weight. So the tow ball weight is the vertical load pushing down on the back of the car from the caravan coupling. So in the case of the Cruiser, the maximum tow ball weight capacity is 350 kilos. All right, so that 350 could potentially be also on the car. See, that's part of your GVM as I mentioned in that first comment. So make sure when you are loading your car and caravan to include whatever the tow ball weight of your caravan might be when you do have it all fully loaded. Don't always take notice on some of the caravan manufacturers, and I'll go through here in a second. Some of the caravan manufacturers do put on their compliance plate of their van, tow ball weight at Tare. And it might be, in the case of this van here, the tow ball weight at Tare is only 165 kilos. But that's no food, no gas, no water, no clothes, nothing inside of the caravan at all. So that tow ball weight of 165 will increase by the time you put all your personal effects into the van. So keep that in mind. If you've only got 200 kilos to play with as far as your GVM is concerned, your tow ball weight of 165 is not going to be that when you do put all your personal effects into the caravan. Right? You will probably go up by, most average vans will increase the ball weight by 70 to 90 kilos above whatever is on the compliance plate, just by putting your personal effects in there. We'll come back to those very shortly. So make sure you know your towing capacity. It is also like the GVM, it is in the owner's manual of your car as well. But also keep in mind that sometimes the tow bar fitted to the car may have a different rating to the actual vehicle. So when you do get your tow bar fitted, and we're going to say, obviously, we want you to fit a Hayman Reese tow bar to your car. When a Hayman Reese tow bar is made and tested, it's tested to the maximum capacity of any variant of that motor vehicle it's being fitted onto. So in the case of the Land Cruiser, Our tow bar assembly that we do supply that goes into the factory receiver piece on the tow bar, it's been tested to 3,500 kilos. Some vehicle manufacturers might have a different tow rating dependent on the different spec level of the car. So there's one particular manufacturer, they make one tow bar, we make one tow bar for their car, and it's 3,200 kilos and 3,200 kilos with 290 on the ball. But that particular model of car has a different tow rating between whether it's a single cab or a dual cab vehicle, whether it's a two-wheel drive or a four-wheel drive, whether it's automatic or manual. The different combinations of car do have a different tow rating. So make sure you understand the tow bar capacity and the vehicle's capacity. They're both critical. And it's the lesser of the two you have to adhere to. But regardless, it's all in the owner's manual of the car. It's pretty easy to find. Looking at the Caravan side of things, and here today at the show, we've been lucky enough that JB Caravans, who are down in the hall across the road here, they've been great in loaning us this Gator Caravan for the show. So I'm going to focus here on some of the numbers of off the compliance plate of the van. So we can see I've written down 3 numbers. The first one I've written down is the word Tare, T-A-R-E. That is the bone dry, absolute empty weight of this Caravan. No food, no clothes, no water, no gas. Sometimes the gas bottles will be fitted, but there'll be no gas in them. It will include things like your fridge will be in there, your mattress will be in there, all those things that have been designed to be, the van is usable or serviceable. They'll all be in there, but it won't have all your personal effects in there. So the Tare is important, but it's not really critical because you're never going to tow your van empty other than maybe when you first pick it up. Some of the more important numbers are to worry about. You can see on the side here I've got GTM. So GTM stands for gross trailer mass. So the gross trailer mass is measured just at the wheels of the Caravan. So in the case of this JB, we've only got one axle. So the maximum weight, that's two tyres, one axle, the wheels, the brakes, everything are all there. The maximum weight they've been rated to from JB is 2,520 kilos. Yes, it's important, but the overall is also important. So the overall weight of the van is the ATM. And the ATM stands for aggregate trailer mass. So the aggregate trailer mass is everything from the tow ball coupling back. So if we were to roll the car forward and put a set of ball weight scales underneath this coupling here, measured there, and measure the scales, you can see I've got scales underneath the wheels as well. If we measure just the entire van, it can't exceed the ATM of 2,800 kilos. That is all your food, gas, clothes, water, cutlery, crockery, sheets, towels, blankets, toiletries, everything you take with you, once it's in the van, can't exceed that 2,800 kilos. And these numbers are all on the compliance plate of the van. Right? Not hard to find. In the case of this one, it's on the front boot in the left-hand side there. So if we think about what we're putting into the van, we can calculate roughly how much we can do it without having a set of scales. We can calculate roughly how much you're allowed to put in. And that is the van weighs 2,195 kilos empty. We're allowed to weigh 2,800 kilos because the Tare and the ATM measure both points, the wheels and the coupling. So we're measuring equal locations. So if we take 2,195 from 2,800, that gives us a payload of 605 kilos for all of your stuff. Right? And you'll be surprised just how quickly you might get there. Considering if this, I haven't had a look actually on this van, but if we consider there might be 2 water tanks underneath there, the average water tank is about 90 litres. So if we fill those 2 water tanks, there's a 180 kilos of that 605 taken up straight away. So a third of our weight is just in water. Then we fill the gas bottles. So potentially we're in that 210 kilos of load out of the 605 just in water and gas. So now you've only got roughly 400 kilos for all of your sheets, towels, blankets, and everything else you take with you. And as I said before, you'll be surprised just how quickly you're going to get there. When we go away in a caravan, we take luggage with us. So most of us take about 25 kilos of luggage, one suitcase full of luggage. I know some of the husbands might say, but my wife takes more than 25 kilos of luggage. And I know some of our other wives might say, but my husband takes more than 25 kilos of just other stuff in the van, that tools and bits and pieces that he might take with him. But make sure you're not exceeding that payload figure on the Caravan as well. And most van manufacturers are putting that same number on the compliance plate as well. So we've got a little bit of information about the car, a little bit of information about the Caravan. There's one more important one which we look at. And in the dual cab ute world, this number is probably the one that is most critical. And I've written on the side of the car there the letters GCM. So GCM stands for gross combination mass. That is car and Caravan connected, all sitting on the, however many wheels it's got, all sitting on the ground at one time. That's the gross combination mass. In the case of this cruiser here, we're allowed to be 6,750 kilos. So the maximum gross combination mass is 6,750. So as I said, gross combination mass is the maximum weight of the car and the maximum weight of the van when they're all hooked up together. So you would assume that your gross combination mass should be the GVM plus the ATM. It's the two numbers added up, but I can see a few people there doing the sums there now, and they're actually not. The cruiser isn't too bad. I know what that comes in at, 6780. So it's about 30 kilos under. In the case of the Land Cruiser, it's about 30 kilos under what the two numbers, the two individual numbers are added up by themselves, which actually isn't too bad on the Land Cruisers. Anybody towing with a dual cab ute? Tritons, Rangers, Navaras, BT50s, that sort of stuff. So they're a fairly common tow vehicle now. I can tell you in the case of, say, a BT50, I'll go the earlier model BT50, they can tow 3,500 kilos. They can weigh 3,200 kilos. That's their GVM. So you would assume maximum weight of the car, 3,200. Maximum weight of the towing capacity, 3,500. Two numbers added up together is 6,700 kilos. So you would assume that's my gross combination mass. In the case of dual cab utes, that's not the case. In the case of that particular BT50, the gross combination mass is only 6,000 kilos. 700 kilos less than the two individual numbers added up together. So you feel like you're getting ripped off 700 kilos. In a roundabout kind of way you are, but there's a reason why they do it. If it's never been explained to you, there is a reason why it's done. And that is, inherently speaking, wagons are more stable on the road than utes. Just the way they're built. There's more weight shared over the front of the car and the back of the car in a wagon than there is on a ute. But in a perfect world, what should weigh more? In a perfect towing world, should your Caravan weigh more than your car, or should the car weigh more than the Caravan? Ideally, your tow vehicle should weigh more than your Caravan. That way, if things get out of control, if the van starts to move, if you have a crosswind, if you've got an uneven road surface, anything that's going on, there's a good chance that if the vehicle weighs more than the Caravan, that your car and Caravan are going to stay in a good control. Potentially, if this weighed more than that does, now we've got what I call the tail wagging the dog. So if this gets out of control, there's a really good chance the car is going to go with it. That's where you need that balance between the two. So in the roundabout kind of way, the dual cab ute manufacturers, they are making you safer on the road. Because they know by the time you buy a dual cab ute, you put mum and dad, 3 kids across the back seat, maybe you've got a canopy on the back, you might have a bull bar on the front, some other accessories fitted on there, you're going to get quite close to your gross vehicle mass of 3,200 kilos. So by doing that 6,000 kilo GCM, that's 32. The overall can't weigh more than 6. So they're forcing you then to tow a van that only weighs 2,800 kilos. So they are, around that kind of way, making you safe by having that gross combination mass not add up the way that it does. So, but the wagons, that's different. We're only 30 kilos difference in the gross combination mass, because like I said, they are definitely more stable than others. So really quickly, I'm hoping they're paying attention to me. If we all just cast quickly our eyes to the right-hand side over here, you can see the guys from WIMTech. So there's a big display board. I'm not sure if you can see it then, but we're talking about all those weights and measures. Just quickly before I go to the next part of my presentation, the guys are going to roll over a set of scales there, and hopefully you're going to see what all those numbers are. I can't see that display board, so he's going over a set of scales there. Where's his scoreboard? Oh, it's right down the very end. So you can see there's a red number right down the very end there. What does it say, Jim? 4,940, I think it says. No, it's on the front corner there. 4910, something like that. So they've just rolled that car and caravan over the scales, and it's come through. Their gross combination mass on that Hilux and the Crusader van is 4,910. I'm guessing the van must be empty because that's a pretty low number for that particular size car and caravan. So while we're talking about what the numbers and stuff actually mean, how they apply to you, there is the option for businesses that can do weighing and assist you in understanding getting all your exact weights and measures as well. So when you're finished here, by all means, go and have a chat to the guys at WIMTech, and they can potentially help you out there. So weights and measures, we've sort of covered that. Any questions on those particular things at the moment? All good for now? So really quickly, I'm going to have one of my colleagues go around to the other side of the caravan. And they're just giving the nod. So clearly, Hayman and Reese, we've been around for 70 odd years now. We are the experts in towing. We invented towing to a degree. Eric Hayman was probably the first man to make a commercially available tow bar in Australia. So we've got, discussing some of our products here, our number one product that Hayman and Reese does make is called a weight distribution hitch. Some people call them load levelers. Some people call them distribution bars, stabilizers, equalizers. They've been called all sorts of names across the years. Unfortunately, some people also call them sway bars. They are not sway bars. They inherently give the vehicle more stability, which then in turn reduces some of the sway from the caravan, but they are not sway bars. There is additional products, which I think we've got on display on one of our stands on the other side, which are dedicated sway bars or dedicated sway control products. But a weight distribution hitch is all about making the car and the caravan as stable as possible when they're in combination. So why do we use one? Because all cars are designed to run, sorry, I got cheat notes here because it's day one, so I'm still remembering all the numbers. All cars are designed to run, though, with a certain amount of weight on the front wheels compared to the rear wheels. In the case of the Land Cruiser here, when I weighed it this morning, the front axle of my car, I'll do it this way so it's sort of representative. So the front axle, when it's this is when the car's by itself. The front axle of the car has 1,533 kilos on it. The rear axle of the car has 1,437 kilos on it. That's the balance between the front wheels and the rear wheels of this motor vehicle by itself. They're generally always heavier in the front because the engine's in the front. As soon as we add bore weight, and I'm going to say as soon as we add bore weight, just like Jim's doing now, we're lowering the coupling of that caravan onto the car. So go all the way down so it's completely off. So jockey wheel's now off the ground. I didn't really highlight it, but you would have seen there is a little bit of sag in the back of the car. When I did the measurements, I think the back of the car sagged by, I think it was like 47 millimetres on the rear, and the front rose by about 8 millimetres. Just by dropping this van, when I weighed it, it's got 220 kilos of bore weight as it sits there right now. So when I drop that 220 kilos on, 40 odd mil drop in the rear, and about a 7 or 8 millimetre raise in the front. One, it looks bad going down the road, but more importantly, my weights across my axles have now changed. So dropping that 220 kilos on the back of the car, my front axle is now 1,761 kilos. So I've increased the front axle, sorry, I've got it around the wrong way. 1,761 is on the rear axle of the car. I'm 324 kilos heavier on this rear axle compared to what I was before the caravan was connected. Why is it more than the 220 kilos of bore weight? Because the front axle actually got lighter. So the front axle is now what we say here, we'll go 1,429. So we'll just... So we've lost about 100 kilos off the front axle by dropping 220 kilos of bore weight on. We are lighter in the front axle by about 104 and heavier in the rear axle by about 324. So that's why although we got 220 kilos of bore weight, we've increased the rear axle load by more than that because that weight from the front wheels are now being carried by the rear wheels. So we drive down the road like that now. Legally, there's nothing that says we have to use a device like weight distribution hitches unless the vehicle manufacturer says so. But legally, we can hit the road and be down the highway at that sort of setup. But what it does do is means that 109 kilos coming off the front wheels, lighter steering, less efficient braking. They're two fairly important factors driving a car by itself, let alone when we've got 2,800 kilos of Caravan behind us. So we need to fix that. The increase on this rear axle, this increase up to 324 kilos heavier on the rear, means we're now going to get an uneven or an unusual rear tyre wear pattern. So if you were to do that for probably 5 or 10,000 Ks, run your hand across this rear tyre, you will feel like a feathering effect across that tyre, a high-low effect on the tread pattern, because we've got too much weight on those rear wheels. That increase on rear axle weight also means you're going to use, believe it or not, yes, you're towing 2,800 kilos of Caravan, but that increase on rear axle weight is also going to increase your fuel use. So you'll use more fuel than what you should do because there's too much weight on those rear tyres. So too much weight means takes more engine power to turn those wheels. More engine power uses more fuel costs you more money. And all you've done is drop 220 kilos of bore weight on. A couple of little bad also side effects on some vehicles, because the sag is so much in the rear and the lift is so much in the front, your headlights now look like they're on high beam all the time. So when the oncoming traffic is potentially going to flash you the high beam to dip your lights, but you can't do anything about it because it's just a case of sag in the car going on. So we put the spring bars on. So my colleague there, Jim, is going to put the spring bar on the left-hand side. 9 links, so 2 loose. Oh, I haven't zip tied them. There's a little bit of weight there because we're not using the jockey wheel to help us. Jim didn't have his Weet-Bix this morning. Ben, you're doing this later on. Oh, you've done your back. Jeez, young fellas today, I don't know. So today we're using the Hayman Reese classic series weight distribution hitch, which has been around since the late 60s when it was first invented. So we run a trunnion style knuckle joint on the end. There is also the standard series, which is like a hockey stick looking system, which I think we've also got, yep, one over there. So please come and have a look at the different styles. But you've got to choose the right style of kit based on your coupling and A-frame arrangement you have here, but also choose the right size based on the actual tow bore weight of your Caravan. You've got to make sure you have the right system for your particular job. Putting this system in, trunnion goes in that end, we swing the bar down the side, we grab the right chain link we need to use, safety pin's handy, we lift it up, pull it into place, safety pin in, and then we take the handle out of the way. So when I'm not talking, it takes you 30 seconds, maybe a minute per side to actually put the system on. They don't add a lot of time to your connection. But from a weights point of view, now we've got that system on there and it's balanced out correctly, the weights across my axles have now changed as well. Where I had a 324 kilo increase on the rear and 104 kilo decrease off the front, I can tell you now my axle weights on my car, we've now got on this front axle, we're now 1,596. So we are about plus 63. So instead of minus 104, we're now plus 63 over that front axle. The rear axle, instead of being, what we say there, plus 324, so it was a 300, I've got it back to front again, haven't I? I have. Yes, sorry, that's the front. This is the rear. 1,511. I had it right the first time. What I'm saying is when you use a weight distribution hitch, you are evenly sharing that load with all points of contact instead of the back axle having too much and the front axle not having enough. So if I did get my printouts for my scales now, I can tell you I've got about a 63 kilo increase on the front axle instead of a 104 kilo negative. Instead of 324 on the rear, I've now only got an extra 74 kilos on the rear. And the balance of my bore weight, which is about 80 odd kilos, is being shared by the Caravan wheel. So all points of contact are increasing by about 75 kilos if I do the average, instead of the back axle carrying all that weight. So your steering's back to normal because there's weight back over the front wheels. Your braking's back to normal because there's weight over the front wheels. Your tyre wear and fuel use is restored back to a towing point of view rather than a carrying point of view. We were carrying all that load there. We're now towing the van instead of carrying it on the back tow ball. So all the behaviour of the car, we're back to what it was before the Caravan was connected. But it is critical to use, like I said, the right style and the right size for your particular car and Caravan. A couple of things to consider. You cannot use these systems to increase or exceed your tow ratings of your motor vehicle. So if the tow rating of this particular cruiser was only 200 kilos, and I've got 220 kilos of bore weight on this van, using this system won't change that. I would still be illegal. I'd still be exceeding the capacity of the towing capacity of the car. They're not primarily designed for off-road. And when I say off-road, I'm talking about four-wheel driving. If you're on dirt roads, corrugations, relatively flat, normal roads, whether it be bitumen, concrete, or dirt, you can still use weight distribution bars. But when you go through that articulation, when the car and the van are twisting like this, that's where you have to consider taking these spring bars off and letting the coupling do its work, which you can see there, this particular JB, it runs the DO35 Cruise Master coupling on there as well, off-road coupling on there as well. So when you want to go off-road, take the spring bars off, you're not going to do any damage, and you can do all the four-wheel drive tracks you might want to with the JB Caravan. That's the basic, simple principle of a weight distribution hitch. Getting the car balanced correctly, and then the van will just tow nicely behind it. Any questions on weight distribution hitches? Any questions on anything else I've spoken about here so far this morning? If you want to know any more information, come see any of us guys here in the blue and white checker shirts with the little walkway there to come down to the stand. But otherwise, thank you for listening to a little bit of a presentation here this morning. Hope you got something out of it. And otherwise, enjoy the rest of the day here at the show. It's a bit warm in the sun, so we appreciate your time listening to us.